Hey guys, this is Melody Shuman with Melody Shuman Breaks It Down, and you're listening to my sixth podcast. This is part two of working with children with ADD. Today, what I want to do is go over the expectations that you should have with children with ADD and things that you need to do that are constructive. There's so much information out there with children with ADD that is more of the what to do after situations happen, putting them on medication, how to properly punish them. A lot of times when I'm talking with parents, particularly martial arts instructors, usually when they contact me about a kid or student with ADD, it's already something negative experience happened, and they want my advice on, how I would handle it. And this is more of an outside of the box, proactive way of working with children with ADD that is going to help hopefully change your mindset when working with them. So let's just go ahead and jump into the expectations that you should have. Just like my stages of development, once you know what to expect, then you can help properly manage it a little bit better. So the expectations, initially when we talk about the expectations of children with ADD, it can sound very negative. There's 4 areas that you should expect, or 4 qualities or characteristics, I should say, that you should expect with children with ADD. And those are, number 1, they're super impulsive. Number 2, they're super distracted. Number 3, they're super hyper. And number 4, they tend to be very, very defiant. Now, when you think about all 4 of those expectations, it probably gives you a lot of anxiety, right? If you're a parent, teacher, coach, martial arts instructor, who wants to work with somebody that's impulsive, distracted, hyper, defiant, right? Well, I do. Because what I like to do is I like to put a positive spin on characteristics, especially characteristics that make you very unique. So instead of saying that they're impulsive, I like to say they're spontaneous. Who doesn't like a spontaneous friend, right? You call your boy, you call your girl saying, let's go out Friday night. And they say, sure, what do you want to do? And, you say, I don't know, just swoop me up in an Uber at 9 o'clock on Friday and we'll figure it out. Now, doesn't that sound like for a fun night? So spontaneity, I think, is a great quality. So their impulsiveness, yes, it could be very frustrating to handle as a parent, teacher, or coach. But remember also that impulsiveness can turn into spontaneity, which is going to be a great quality that they have as an adult. So try not to suppress it. The next thing is they're going to be very distracted. So if there's something more important going on in the room, they're going to check it out. It's like if you're out to dinner with a really boring friend and the conversation is just very, lagging quality, lagging excitement, and you hear a table next to you where people are laughing and having a good time, of course you're going to look over and be like, oh, that sounds like it's more fun over there. So, the positive spin on being distracted is they're curious. They're curious about what's going on in the world. And curiosity is a great quality of all the most influential inventors of the world. To give you an example, when I was first teaching martial arts, we were putting kids of all ages in the same class. We'd have kids from 6 years old to 12 years old in the same class, training side by side. We'd run a drill. My 6-year-olds couldn't keep up with the older kids. So then the next drill, I'd make it a little bit easier for the 6-year-olds to keep up. And then the 12-year-olds were bored. And I was running these roller coaster classes. And I was very distracted by that format that we were taught. We were taught wrong. So I was curious on if we can do it better. And we could do it better. When I started studying the stages of development, I realized that it was more valuable to break them up by age versus putting them all in the same class. So that curiosity has led me to the invention of martial arts curriculums that are working in hundreds of schools all over the world. So the curiosity is a very good quality. You just got to remember that if you're a parent or you're a teacher or coach, a martial arts instructor, and you're working with a kid that has ADD, you got to remember that you don't want them to be distracted. You want them to pay attention to you. So you have to be very interesting. Make sure that you're more interesting than anything else in the room. Also make sure that whatever activity you're doing with them is the most fun compared to anything else that they could be doing at the time. So again, the distraction is technically going to be a good quality as long as, once again, you don't suppress it. Let's talk about hyperactivity. Well, geez, a lot of adults these days, they don't want to deal with kids that are hyper. Me, I love hyper kids. I love it. My positive spin on hyper is high-spirited and passion So, you explain, we're going to do this next drill, and the kid with ADD starts dancing around. He doesn't stop moving. And I get it a lot, especially from martial arts instructors. How do you get an ADD person to sit still? And me, it's like, why do you want to sit them still? You want that passion, you want that drive. If I wasn't so hyper and high spirited, then I probably wouldn't have created my skills program in the first place, because I'm so passionate about it. I get so excited. I have so much energy. I can't wait for Monday mornings. I live for Monday mornings. I live for Monday and Wednesday mornings, because those are the mornings where my son goes to his grandparents and I can really dive into my work. So again, going back, that hyperactivity means that they're high spirited, means that they're passionate, and you want to look at it in that positive manner. So the next time you're a parent and your kid's being super hyper, try not to look at it as a negative thing. Look at it as, wow, he's hyper, he's high spirited, he's passionate. This is going to be a great quality for him as he's an adult. Now let's go on to the next expectation. As I mentioned, they can be very defiant. Well, think about it. Parents, teachers, coaches are labeling these ADD kids, and they are calling them impulsive. They're calling them distracted. They're saying that they're hyper. And these kids are like, man, you just don't get me. So I'm going to be a little bit defiant and go against the grain, which is exactly how I am too. Defiance and being a rebel is how new things are created. Going back to, the creation of skills. When I first started breaking my classes down age specifically, the organization that I belonged to didn't like it at all. And it led me to walking away from those schools and opening up my own new school in another city. But it was very different. I broke my classes down age specifically, and it was that defiance or that daringness to do something different that led me to the success that I have. So that's the key word there. When you hear that a kid's defiant, look at it as they're daring. And those daring people, those are the ones who break the mold. Those are the ones who invent new things. So if your kid is defiant, you look at it in a positive way and you embrace it in a positive way, and you help them learn right from wrong with their defiance, but also nurture that daringness. It's going to lead to great things when they're an adult. Let's talk about things that you need to do with these expectations, okay? As I mentioned, the first thing is you need to embrace their situation, okay? Instead of being upset that they have ADD. If you have an ADD child, embrace it, knowing that these 4 expectations that I just listed are also the qualities that are going to make them successful as an adult. If you're a teacher, coach, or martial arts instructor, embrace it too, because just assume that a lot of people aren't going to embrace it, and they need enough role models in their life to embrace their unique rhythm. So if you embrace their impulsiveness and their distractibility and their hyperactivity and their defiance, and look at it instead as they're spontaneous, they're curious, they're high-spirited and passionate, they're daring, you're going to help them become a better version of themselves more productively. The other thing is with that said, you have to be tolerant of their behavior. Now, I'm not suggesting that you can let them go run amok and break the rules if you're a parent or a teacher or martial arts instructor, but you need to try to be a little bit more tolerant of their behavior and sometimes be just as daring as them. And to give you an example, my son, he's right now, as of this podcast recording, he's 22 months old, my son Van, and he is the biggest 21 Pilots fan there is. So he plays the drums and the guitar all day. He likes to listen to their music on his iPhone. He likes to watch music videos on his iPad. And my partner thinks that he needs to be watching a lot more Sesame Street and a lot more Little Einsteins and a lot more Mickey Mouse Club. And I get her point of view. So, when she's around, she makes sure that he gets his daily dose of Sesame Street and all those other things. But when she's gone, I like to be daring with my son. I like to let him watch 21 Pilots on his iPad. As a matter of fact, when we do it intentionally, secretively. So if mommy's in the shower, or she's out somewhere else doing something, we'll go in his little teepee tent, or we'll make a little blanket fort, and we'll go sit in the blanket fort and watch a little bit of 21 Pilots on the iPad. Except for Heathens, that video I don't want my son to watch. If you're a 21 Pilots fan, first of all, awesome. But don't think that I let my son watch Heathens. So again, be tolerant of their behavior. Sometimes be a little bit daring yourself with children with ADD. You're going to help them realize that you're you're part of their growth. And so the last thing you want to do is build a wall between you and that child, because they need that connection. They need people to get them more so than go against them and try to restrict them. I should brand that: get them instead of restrict them. Pretty cool. Okay. The other thing is you need to be optimistic. So, as I broke down, instead of looking at their expectations as negative, optimistically looking at, hey, this is going to be a quality that's going to make them a better person down the road. This is something that a lot of parents it's going to be hard for parents to be optimistic. So if you're a teacher, coach, martial arts instructor of a child with ADD, obviously you're going to use all of the ideas I gave you from my last podcast on the things that they need to help them, but also knowing optimistically, that it's going to take a little bit of time. So telling parents, yes, if a parent gets upset and says, well, my son's just really hyper in class, say, yeah, but that hyperactivity, that's high spiritedness, that's passion, that's going to help them become better as an adult. So optimistically translating their weaknesses into strengths is going to help them become a better version of themselves. And then finally, the next thing that you need to do, you have to be patient. You have to know that the structure that I laid out in my last podcast is nothing that's going to happen overnight. So don't expect to have, the structure in for a day or two or three. Hey, I've followed your podcast for a week and nothing's changed, or followed it for a month and nothing's changed. You have to be patient. Every child is different. And also know that there's a high chance, if you're a parent, this doesn't necessarily mean that their teacher's going to be following the same structure as you at school, or their coach is going to be following the same structure in their sport or activity. So knowing that the less people you have following this structure, the longer it's going to take. So be very patient with them. You never know what child who has ADD is just right on that cusp of starting to get it, where life clicks, especially if you're following that structure, that connection, that stimulation, and that downtime, that formula that I've laid out for you. You never know when, tomorrow could be that day where it just all of a sudden clicks. But today he had a meltdown, and then you just abandon the whole concept altogether, and you turn to drugging him, or you turn to disciplining him, or you turn to pulling him out of activities that are really good for them, and you start doing things that are retroactive. So be very patient with them as well. So one more time reviewing, your expectations should be now positive. I'm not going to list the negative ones. Is expectations for children with ADD, they're spontaneous. They should be curious, high-spirited and passionate, and very daring. And again, things that you need to do if you're a parent, teacher, or coacher, parent, teacher, or coach working with children with ADD, you need to embrace their situation. You have to be tolerant of their behavior and sometimes be just as daring with them. You have to be very optimistic on what their unique personality and qualities are going to do for their future if you embrace them in the right way and you nurture them in the right way. And then, of course, you got to be very patient with them, knowing that every child is going to be different when it finally clicks, when they finally get it. And also be patient knowing that maybe other teachers, coaches, and so forth aren't following the same structure as you. So hopefully this part 2 podcast and part 1 change your perspective of kids with ADD. If you already had this perspective, then obviously it's just a validation. But if you're working with them and you're listening to this podcast, hopefully you're saying, man, you know what? I'm excited now. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves. And as a teacher, I'm ready to work with this child. As a coach, as a martial arts instructor, you're ready to help them become a better version of themselves. So thank you guys for listening to this podcast. And make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those great things. I'd love to stay in touch with you. And have a great day.